So today's video is going to be about Reolink. I recently found this this brand on Amazon, and I've installed some of these cameras around my house to replace some old Foscam cameras. And the Foscam brand over the years has served me well. However, it seems that Foscam is kind of fading away. It doesn't seem like they're in the market as much as they used to be, and it doesn't really seem like they're doing much effort to really expand on anything. It did seem like they made a little bit of a transition to another brand, which was called Hunt Vision, and that was only on the market for maybe 6 months to a year, and then it disappeared. And I actually installed some of those cameras for a couple customers of mine, and now I can't get any support, and I cannot get replacement cameras. So kind of gave me a rather sour taste in my mouth to that particular brand. So anyway, this camera right here is the Reolink. This is a 4 megapixel PoE, non-zoomable. You can zoom digitally, but not optically. So you can't change the focal distance or any of that. So the active resolution at 4 megapixels is 2560 by 1440, and it has a 4.0 millimeter lens. Now, compared to a lot of other cameras, that's actually quite narrow. Most cameras are, close to 2.0 millimeter, and that basically changes the viewing angle of what the camera can see from a given position. So the higher, pretty much the higher the millimeter, so in this case 4 millimeter, that's probably going to be close to 80 or 90 degrees. And then the lower the number, the wider angle that the camera can see, basically determining how many cameras you need to look at one thing. Now this camera, I was maybe a little bit disappointed in how wide the viewing angle was, because when I ordered this on the website it said 2 millimeter, and I was like, oh great, perfect, that's what I'm used to. And then I went and I saw the 4 millimeter, and I was like, wow, oh man, this is gonna suck. Well, it ended up not being that bad, and it actually had a fairly wide viewing angle. I think what's happening is they've actually, due to the higher resolution of sensor, or maybe the bigger sensor, it's kind of skewing the numbers to what I'm usually used to with either standard def cameras or 720 to 1080 cameras. So that being said, the viewing angle was acceptable for these cameras. Anyway, outdoor, day and night, again PoE, and this is the actual real PoE that you can buy any PoE switch and plug it in there. I forget what the IEEE standard is. I can't recall it offhand, but it will work with a normal 48 volt PoE injector or 48 volt PoE switch as normal. I've got it currently hooked up to a Cisco switch, PoE switch, and it works just fine. Comes right up. You can scan the QR code. The software and the app for Android, I haven't tried it on iPhone yet, is very good at picking up the camera if it's on the network, so you don't even have to scan each and every barcode to get the device up and running. The software will recognize it as long as the network that you're connected to with your phone is on the same network as the device is connected to. So if you're on 4G, it's not going to pick it up. Obviously, you're not on the same network. But the minute that you add it, and you add that peer-to-peer code or string, it will connect to it. Night vision is actually pretty good. It says that it'll do 100 feet. It's yes and no. The thing is with this camera, I've noticed that the Foscam was better with the dynamic range. And what do I mean by that? So if I had a light that was over here, that, like, if the camera was here and the light was here and it was illuminating this area right here, but then off to the further back, either if the light started to curve off, it got darker and darker as it got further away. The camera was good at still seeing objects without them being washed out with the light, and also was still able to compensate and make this area way in the back a lot brighter. That's one of the reasons why I really like Foscam, is that all their cameras have always been good with very low light and dynamic compensation. They were very good. Anyway, we're already 6 minutes into the video and I've gone on long enough. Let's see the camera. So things that I like about the camera, first and foremost, we don't read manuals, obviously. Nobody does until things don't work, so we'll put that away. So here's the first thing that I like about it, is you get, and I believe, yes, it's a little hard to get the sticker off. They didn't give any real pull tab. There we go. Okay, so this is something that you don't see on a lot of inexpensive cameras, and this, as you can see, this is kind of a pain to peel this off because they didn't give us much of a pull tab, but rest assured, this is a sticker. Come on. Come on. There we go. Alright, so we have a sticker. And this is fantastic for if you have a situation where you need to mount, and you can see it's a sticker. You need to mount this somewhere. And instead of having to take a Sharpie or take a pen of some sort and having to mark that hole and get in there, and it's just a pain in the ass, this is a very nice step forward than having to dick around with drilling holes and making a mistake and then having the thing a little cockeyed or something like that. You peel this off. I would like to see if they could just cut the corner on this so you can peel it easier. I mean, I ended up not using these just because it was just such a pain in the ass to peel this. It just took too much time, and it was getting ready to rain, and I was like, I'm just gonna rush through this. And I did rush, but if they put a little tab right there just so you could easily just go whop, done, stick it on the wall, put it where you need to be, and be done, that would be fantastic. So that's just one improvement that I have criticism wise, but it's not even worth noting. It really isn't, because everything else just works fantastically. They also give you another sticker in here that you can put around your house if you're so inclined. Put it on a window or something like that. We're not going to look at any of the other documentation. It's not really important. They do give you a little jumper right here. This I just kind of put in my my jumper cables drawer. This is good for network patching and stuff like that. But this is too short that you're not going to be able to use it for anything that you're going to be doing. So you will either need to buy other longer patch cables, or you will need to buy the appropriate equipment to patch your own or make your own cables, which I highly recommend, because normally when I do an installation, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use just the cable, and then I'm going to drill a hole, and the hole is going to be just larger than the size of this cable. Two reasons for that. One, you don't make a big gaping hole in the wall. Secondly, you can use smaller bits, and the smaller the bit, the quicker it's going to go through whatever material that you're going to be going into, whether that be concrete, cinder block, wood, plastic, metal. It's always going to be faster the smaller your bit, and the bits will be cheaper, so you can have multiple of them for whatever you're doing. And then what you do is you would terminate this cable on the end after you pulled it through the wall wherever its destination is, whether it be inside or outside, especially outside. So anyway, that's the cable. So it's good for testing it, make sure it'll work, but that's about it. Okay, so getting to the camera. Oops, there we go. another notable thing before we get to the camera here that I really like is this. You've seen a lot, even Foscam, you know, one of my favorite manufacturers. Everybody's implemented this end here, okay? And nobody has ever included the gland, this guy right here. So how does this work? Okay, so basically what you do is you have this gland right here, okay? And then what you would do is you would take this cable, now an unterminated cable, okay, for example, and you would push it through this hole here, okay? And then what you would do is you would then, let's see here, where's all my pieces? All right, so we've got this little O-ring here. We put this guy on here. And then we've got, let's see, am I missing a piece? No. Okay, so so then what you would do is, do I have a cable laying around here? I might not. Okay, I'm just gonna break this. Okay, that's fine. So normally this is all one piece. Okay, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna break it. Okay, so I just broke it in half there, and what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna demonstrate what people will. If you buy a pre-terminated cable, you can still do this, but the only thing is that now you have this little gap right here that, you know, it may or may not seal out water as good. But anyway, this is just for demonstration purposes. So, okay, so we put that little gasket that goes right here between these two pieces before they lock together. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to put this back piece on. Let's see if it'll fit. Is it going to fit on here? Yes, it will. Okay. All right, so we've got the little locking nut here. Doesn't look like a locking nut, but it is. And then we've got the gland that goes here. Now it goes with the little, I don't know what you would call these little ripples, these little pieces. And the way this works is, so we're going to feed this piece through this coupler here. And then, all right, so now we've got all three of these pieces in place here. This is way easier if you have a non-terminated cable, okay? So then what you would do is, now you got all these pieces on, and then you would terminate the cable and be done with that piece. So now what we're going to do is we're going to plug this in like this, okay? Nice good snap on there. And then what we do is we push this piece up here and we twist it until everything gets lined up, okay? And then there's going to be a little quarter turn twist, and you can feel it lock in. And the O-ring hasn't really seated too perfectly here, but again, I'm just rushing for demonstration purposes. So that little O-ring, okay, is just a seal between these two pieces here, okay? So let's lock that back in. Okay, so nice tight, there we go, nice and well seated, okay. Then what we're going to do is we're going to take, now again, with this pre-terminated, it has this boot on the back here, which doesn't work as well. So this really defeats the whole purpose of having this gland right here, because now this gland can't go all the way down. But I'm going to show you what it would look like if you didn't have that boot on there. So that's one thing to note, is that you don't really want to use a cable that has a boot on the end of the RJ45 connector here, because it's going to prevent you from being able to slide this gland all the way in place here. So this is what it would look like if that boot was not stopping me from putting it in there. So we slide this gland in here like that, and then we take this little locking nut and we twist this until it stops. And then, so the way that this works is that it would squeeze the plastic together like that, and then to keep the water out. How reliable is this connection? It may or may not be good enough to keep the water out. I still recommend, if you can, to drill a big enough hole if you're installing this outside, this is not necessary if you're doing it inside, because it should be dry inside wherever you're putting it. What I recommend is drilling a hole big enough that you can actually feed your cable into the building. Okay, you have plenty of slack to do it. So the wall would be here, and then the rest of the slack would go inside the building. Why do you do that? The problem is that, one, you don't want cables hanging out because it looks unprofessional. The other reason is you don't want cables in such a way that water has a way of following the cable getting into the device. Even if it's sealed, it may or may not be sealed perfectly. Especially these pieces right here. So here's the thing, and I haven't tested this piece yet, but if you look here, so this is giving you power, okay? And then you have these two pieces right here. You have the reset button, and then you have this barrel jack for power. I need to test, I haven't tested this yet. If you run power to this, does it actually put DC voltage back out onto this barrel connector, or is it completely isolated? And why is that important? That's important because if there's power here, this will start to corrode over time, especially if it gets wet. Okay, that's a big issue that can eventually cause intermittent problems. If this starts corroding and shorting out, it could actually make the camera itself turn on and off because it's shorting out. And it can also cause problems with your PoE switch. Some PoE switches are nice enough that if there's a problem on one port, it'll be isolated and it'll only short out that one port. However, on more inexpensive PoE injector switches, I've actually had instances where if one port shorted out, the whole thing shorted out, so every camera stopped working. And this is a problem with certain devices. So that would be, if you're trying to do everything on a budget, and do the installation for yourself or for a customer of yours on a budget, then you could have an instance where you could actually have a camera get shorted out and then the whole system goes down. So the other thing is this reset button. This reset button is just a regular standard, little tactile dome switch. There is, it's potted into this connector here, but the water can still get in between the plastic and inside the button there. And again, that's the same problem where now if this shorted out, your camera could constantly be resetting itself, and you have no idea why that camera will come on when you power it up and then it will never initialize itself onto the network. It'll always just keep on resetting, and you might look at the network switch, and then you'll see the networking light will go on and then it'll go out, and it'll go on and it'll go out, and you think, oh, there's a short somewhere. No, it's actually they got water in the button. So that's another reason why, if you can do it, put the cable inside the building. Okay, drill a hole big enough that you can run all the cables into the building. Some people try to put these little dongles or whips or whatever you want to call them, pigtails. They try to put them in these little enclosures, and sometimes they don't. One, I think they look a little unsightly. I like everything to be minimalistic and clean. Once you add that extra box, it makes everything look a little clunky. And then that you have that added problem where inside the building you have a good chance that it's going to be fairly safe and secure from water. The minute you put it on the outside of the building, unless you have a really good enclosure, which also adds to your cost, it just adds all kinds of problems. Eventually I might get around to actually seeing if it puts voltage on here, and I have seen, not with this brand, but I have seen it where these have corroded and shorted out. So I don't know about this brand. Even if that's not the case, this is still susceptible to shorting out due to moisture and causing the camera to be pretty much in a permanent reset state. Okay, now onto the camera. So here's the camera. Things that I like about this camera are the way that they implemented the way that you move it. I think it's a nice design. A lot of different cameras, they were set up in a way that you had this this ring, this retention ring that you had to twist. You'd spin it like this, and it would lock the camera in place. The problem with those is that sometimes what would happen is, as you were spinning this ring to clamp the camera down, the camera would actually twist a little bit as you were twisting this ring, and it would mess up your positioning. What they've come up with, what Reolink has come up with, is they've come up with a pretty nice design where you have this locking screw here. You pull this little piece back here, and then I might have to loosen it up a little bit more. And then it just pops off, and this ring comes off, and that's really interesting. So I'll show you that again. So once you push down, it locks in place, and then all you'd have to do is tighten this locking screw in place, and then the camera is set. So now you could actually be pointing your camera. You don't have to pull the ring off. Actually, you can still move the camera around. And then once you lock this screw down, it keeps everything fairly in place. Okay, it's not that easy to move. But if you need to pull the whole, well, you will have to pull the whole ring off in order to, yeah, see, it's a little, it's easier when you have it mounted to the wall already. Come on. There we go. Okay, so I'm going to be honest with you, that's the first time I've ever had trouble with this mechanism. Yeah, see, it's a little weird when you're doing it on a table, but when you've already got it mounted to the wall, it's fairly easy. So you can see how it comes off. So the ring comes off, and then that exposes your 4 holes here for mounting it to the wall or ceiling or wherever you're going to be mounting it to. So we'll take some of these pieces off here. Now I can't get my Ethernet cable out. Hello. It's really in there. Well, whatever. We know that it's not coming out. That's good. Alright, so this being put aside, interestingly enough, this camera does have a microphone. You can see the little hole there. I have to say the microphone on this camera is very, very good. I can hear people talking fairly clearly on a calm day around 30 feet away, which is fantastic. I was very surprised. It does have a little problem with wind. It doesn't like wind, but you know, realistically, most cameras don't have microphones for outdoor cameras. This one actually implements it quite well. So what I'm going to do is, let's see where my screwdrivers are. There we go. I want to see I haven't opened one of these cameras yet, so this is going to be the grand unveil. And the Foscam equivalent of this camera, of this style of dome camera, had the same locking nut on the back here. It's a very similar design, and that particular camera, and their dome camera, their 720 camera, the way that it was put together, it twisted together, which was nice that it was toolless. And what it did was it revealed internally that you could actually put an SD card inside of it. If you were on a budget and you didn't want to have to run an NVR, you could run it that way. So let's see what we get internally. Okay, so what we get right off the bat here is a microphone. Let's see if I can... Alright, well, we can see that it's hot glued in there. So it's definitely... I was actually kind of worried about, oh no, is that hot glue? No, that's silicone. Never mind, it's silicone. That's way better. So it's siliconed in there, which is good because hot glue has, you know, It's not really the best for keeping water out. Over time, you know, a lot of solar lights used to be like that. They were hot glued together, and over time water would get in. So that's nice to see. And it looks like the microfoam has a little bit of padding in front of it. I don't know how well you're going to be able to see that in there, but there is padding. It's a very small microphone. You could see it in the center there, and then on the periphery there is this padding, and I'm assuming that's to try and help dampen a little bit of the wind. So let's go in here. So we have a little silica gel package here for any moisture that that might have been in the air when this was assembled, and that will get rid of it so that the glass won't fog up, which is a nice feature. And especially since we've just opened it, it'll help, you know, any of the moisture that's in this when we close it, it'll try and reduce you know, any fogging or anything like that. So I'm gonna go and take a couple more layers apart here. So we have the infrared LEDs on top, and we have the, I'm assuming that's the light sensor to tell the infrared when to turn on. I'm going to take this this packet out of here. All right, and then we've got these little riser pieces, and then we'll go in here. We'll take out this next board here that has the actual camera module itself. And is this, yeah, okay, so this has a connector right here connecting the whole module. And let's see, where are our screws on here? So it looks like the these little riser pieces here are essentially the screws. I'll just loosen them a little bit. Okay. Now looking in the back here, I can actually see a real-time clock battery, and I haven't on any of the Foscam cameras. I don't remember seeing a battery for remembering clock, so that's kind of interesting to see here. So here's the back module that's doing all the hard work. And if we see here, this is kind of nice. We've got a little aluminum, yeah, it looks to be aluminum, heatsink plate that goes all the way to the body of the camera. And then where the processor would be under here, there's a thermal pad that is for heat sinking to go to the body of the camera. So this camera should perform very well for dissipating heat in hot weather climates. So that's really nice to see. And then we have the couple components here. This is isolation for the Ethernet for the data. And then right down in here, I'm going to assume that this is our power module for converting. We have the lines coming directly in here, and this is probably going to be our power module for converting the 48 volts PoE into you know, whether it be 5 volts or 3.3 or whatever this these components run off of, and usually it's 5 volts or 3.3 volts. Got a date stamp right here, 2017. Now I'm not seeing a SD card slot, and what I can do is, if you give me a second, I'm going to go grab one of my older cameras, and I'll show you the inside of what it looked like. So I'll be right back. So here's one of my older cameras by Foscam, and you can definitely see the size difference. I mean, this absolutely dwarfs this one in size. So you're definitely getting a better, more discreet camera. Again, this is a fantastic camera. I don't remember the model offhand, but I really liked it. The only reason I was actually changing out these cameras is because these ones had gotten destroyed by some lightning in the past, and it's a long story of exactly how the lightning had affected them. It was, if anybody's curious, they could just ask me in the comments, and I can make another video of exactly what happened. But so the way that all this worked is, and I've already had this apart many times, as you can see, and you can see how easily these come apart. You just twist them apart by hand. But the wonderful part about them is that they actually had a SD card slot. Okay, so you could actually put memory inside this camera and record internally. However, the interface for actually getting the footage off of the camera and playing back was a little bit cumbersome. You could play back off the camera and save off the camera from your computer. However, again, it was not the easiest thing to do, and it took a while to do, and loading the files was very slow, so I don't really recommend it. Again, coming back to the same thing with these cables here, when I had actually put them into the attic space, or ran them through the attic space to get them where they needed to go, I had actually put grease inside the different parts here, just regular red automotive grease. That's why it looks red, just to try and keep some of the moisture out that would have been where I had placed it. So again, great cameras, but because these got destroyed due to that incident last year, these cameras are now getting replaced by the Reolinks. So overall, I like the construction of the camera. I like how small they are. They come onto the network very, very quickly, and it seems like they're made with fairly nice components. It looks like they've been very well engineered and designed. So if there's any questions that anybody has about this camera, or what my experiences have been with them, gladly willing to help answer any future questions. The other thing that I'd like to say is that perhaps in a future video I will make a review, or a demonstration rather, of the software itself and how it works and how well everything comes together when you unbox it and take it out of the package and set it up for the first time. The Android software and the PC software looks like it's based around having a maximum of 16 cameras. I don't know how the software would react if you were to give it more than 16 cameras, so that has yet to be seen. So if anybody has experience with installing more than 16 of these cameras at a time, I'd definitely like to hear what their experiences have been. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys on the next one.